In this video, we'll be going over the Milestone 4 template. Remember, you're welcome to use the module prompt and the rubric to do your Milestone 4. You absolutely do not have to use this template, but if you want to use the template, that's what we're going to go over today. So first, remember, don't delete anything in this template. Just fill in your answers. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to fill in my name. This is a fake student name. You'll see the numbers at the sides. Oops. I actually just moved it on accident. Those numbers correspond to the questions. And so if you have a problem when, there's a problem when yours is graded and there's an issue to fix, it'll reference that number. So if something says number 1 is missing, it means you didn't put your name. Okay? Some of this you can copy and paste from prior milestone assignments. That's why it's critical if you have completed those and you were given the option to edit those for a regrade. It's highly suggested that you took advantage of that. Maybe you still can depending on when you watch this video. So that you can make sure those items are correct and then just copy and paste them into this week's work. Otherwise, you're missing the points twice for the same work. So copy and paste the question. I've been copying it from the beginning. So, see, I can pick any prior milestone. I'm just going to copy my question, the exact question that was in your list. Okay, not your interpretation of the question, just the exact question. Okay, remember, I'm doing, does the color of holiday M&Ms affect the weight? You are not doing this question. You're doing something on myocardial infarctions. Question 3, provide one and only one. That means don't provide two. Provide one graph that is useful in explaining your results. You can copy and paste from another program, take a screenshot, etc., and paste it where it says. Make sure you label everything. Your x-axis should be labeled. Your y-axis should be labeled. Your graph should be given a title. This should look nice and presentable. Okay? Don't include labels of 0, 1. Your data might have zeros and ones in it, but use the actual labels, and that might come in your statistical report description. Remember, that can be found in an announcement, or if you look in Module 3, the milestone assignment, if you actually click on the assignment, there's another link to your statistical report description, and that will tell you what the zeros and ones mean for the data. So, for example, if one of your variables is gender, make sure you make it clear on the graph whether or not it's male or female. Don't put zeros and ones on the graph. The other thing to remember is that histograms group quantitative data while a bar graph groups categorical data. Even though those graphs end up looking similar, you're not going to get the right results if you try to do a bar graph when you have quantitative data. So make sure if you're choosing one of those that you choose the right one. Okay. I'm going to go ahead into StatCrunch to do my graph. Okay, so here's StatCrunch. I have my data. Remember last time, or was it the time before that, that we recoded? My original color variable was in zeros and ones, but I decided to recode that just so it was really clear. It just helps me look at the data. If you forgot how to do that, go to Data, Recode, and it'll walk you through that. Okay. So I'm going to show you how to make a box plot. I'm going to graph. I'm going to choose box plot just because I think that's a good one to choose when I have two groups, because I can do a side-by-side box plot pretty easily. I choose the actual column that I'm interested in, weight, and I'm going to group by color and compute. Okay. What's really nice is it automatically chooses my variable names to be the axis titles. Okay, and you see the green and red instead of zeros and ones. The only thing I'm going to add is a title. And I'm going to call this M&M weights by color. It's a reasonable title. Okay. And that's it. It was really easy to make this side-by-side box plot from the data. And my options, I'm going to copy this gives me another one. It tells me to right click. I'm just going to copy it, and I'm going to go to my milestone, and I'm going to paste it. It's a bit large for that space, so I'm just going to get it a little smaller, but make sure it's not too small so that it can be seen. My explanation of the graph. Why did I choose a side-by-side box plot? In my case, I might say something like, it shows the quartiles and outliers for each color. Okay. Actually, I'm going to change it to the side-by-side box plot. Okay. So it doesn't have to be a long explanation, but just a thoughtful explanation that describes your graph. And again, notice I have my two different box plots are labeled, the axis, both axes are labeled, and I have a title to that graph. Now look at what analysis technique did you perform. Okay. Remember, it's highly recommended that you choose only one test or technique just to keep things simple. We're not throwing in every possibility. Like when you read a research paper, you're going to see that they do many different techniques. We're keeping things simple here. Okay. Some examples include a one-sample t-test, a two-sample independent t-test, a paired t-test, linear regression, etc. You pick the one that is most relevant to your question of interest in data. And since I've already turned in my template from Milestone 3 that had the test I'm going to use, I'm going to copy that. Since I didn't get any points marked off for that, it must be a good choice, and I'm going to add that. Two-sample independent t-test. And my null hypothesis. No matter what you choose, no matter what statistical technique you choose, there is a hypothesis test associated with it. Okay, even if you're not doing a t-test. So remember, what is your null hypothesis? This should be specific to the test or technique you chose, and it should involve at least one parameter. Okay. There are many different tests that compare two groups. Okay, make sure you're talking about specific parameters here. For example, if something not to do is a bad null hypothesis is gender does not influence length of stay for MI patients, because it's not specific to any particular test. Okay, you've got to be very specific. And I already turned this in again. I did mu green equals mu red, where the mean weight of green M&Ms is mu green and the mean weight of red M&Ms is mu red. And I didn't use a mu. I could have gone to the symbols and thrown it in there, but I didn't. I'm fine if you use a U. I don't want you to spend forever trying to get the exact right symbol. And then for the alternative, in my case, mu green does not equal mu red. I have no reason not to use a two-sided hypothesis. Notice I did throw in that not equal sign. I don't think we did that last time, but if you go to insert over here to symbol, okay, it's not there. Oh, there it is, actually. Sometimes it's not there if you're already on it, but it's right there up top. Okay, and you can use that. Okay. Now your calculations by hand, you're going to provide all relevant calculations for your hypothesis test or statistical technique. Okay, if it's not clear, if you've got a ton of handwritten stuff that you're copying and pasting a picture of, make sure your important points are highlighted or bolded or something. Okay. I'm going to go to StatCrunch, and I'm going to sort of get rid of these guys, and I'm going to go to Stats and do my t-test. Okay, I'm going to do a two-sample with data. Remember, with summaries, if I just know the mean or standard deviation, but with data, is usually I'm actually using a data set. So here, I have to use my values and weight, but I have to be specific. I have to break this up into two groups. So the first thing I need to build is a statement that says where my color, and I can double-click color or add the column, where my color equals, and I can add either green or red. It already gives you the preset values. I'm going to pick green, add that, where color equals green. Okay, that's my first sample. And I'm going to do the same thing where color equals red. Color equals, and now at the bottom I'm going to choose red. Okay. Notice there's a lot of things in quotation marks. You'll find that with programming, there's sometimes little nuances with punctuation. So sometimes if they give you an option of things just to click on, I do that. Okay. We're not going to go into whether or not you should do pooled variances or not. There's some nuances that we just don't get to in this course. Let's just go ahead and do pooled variances. Okay. Typically, if your variances are unequal or not very equal, you would not pool them. If they are, we can actually go back to our milestone and look at that. These are except for the one outlier, these are reasonably spread out the same. I don't think there's any huge reason not to pull the variances at this point. Okay, so I'm going to just press compute. Oh, no rows. What did I do? Oh, I forgot to add the second color. You have to be really careful. So I chose red here, but I didn't add it. Okay, now we should be good. And there you go. Okay. And you can actually just copy this. Okay. And it's going to give you directions here. Okay. It says click on the output, drag the mouse, okay, or use Control A to select all of it, and then Control C. So I've clicked on this, Control A, Control C, and let's see what happens when I go back to my milestone. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. Now these are the calculations of your t-test. This isn't the end of your t-test. The t-test you have to finish it up. Okay, so we'll get to that, but we have our calculations. Notice some important things. We've got our t-stat and our p-value. It says list one value. It says pick one statistical calculation from above, list and name the value. That's it. List and name the value. It says t-test, regressions, chi-square tests, etc. are all procedures, not calculations. However, you may list a calculation involved in one of the test or statistical techniques. For example, mode is red. That would be an example. Okay? If you were doing a test that involved that. Okay? But that's just an example of how simple number 9 is. I'm going to do p-value equals 0.4983. Now, in other portions of the test, we had to be specific about what the definition of the p-value is, or talk about it with respect to the particular study we were looking at. So number 9 says explain what this, or sorry, number 10 says explain what this one statistical calculation means for your analysis and the question of interest. Do not merely discuss this calculation in general terms. Be specific to this analysis. So what does a p-value of 0.4983 mean? Well, it means basically that if the null hypothesis were true, or in other words, if the weight, I'm going to say population weight, because not the sample weight, of red M&Ms and green M&Ms, if it is equal, then the chance of getting data, I'm going to say a test statistic. In other words, the test statistic is at 0.68. And what that is, that's a relative difference in the sample means. Okay? It's the difference in sample means divided by the estimated standard deviation. Okay? So if these population means are equal, population mean weight, make sure you're very clear about your parameter. The population mean weight of red M&Ms and green M&Ms is equal, then the chance of getting a test statistic this extreme or more extreme is 0.4983 or 49.83%. And I'm going to add